What got you interested in the paranormal and kind of got you down the road as a paranormal researcher?
Well, I was always interested in everything strange. When I was a kid, I never watched Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood because they had reruns of Lost in Space on at the same time on a different channel. So I watched that instead. So I was really big into science fiction, and then I got into horror at probably too young of age. And I was a kid when you got the Scholastic Book Club order form in elementary school. Friends were ordering, biographies of the president or baseball players, and I was getting books on the Loch Ness Monster and Bigfoot. That's stuff I was interested in, and some of it had to do with my interest in science fiction and horror, but some of it also had to do with the fact that I saw a full-bodied apparition when I was about 8 years old, and that made me wonder what's actually out there. So I think that all those things together got me interested.
That's very fascinating. Wow. I'm sure that must have had quite an impact on you at that age, seeing that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I walked into our hallway. It was the middle of the day, I know, because the light was terrific, and the hallway that I was going into, Dad put all our bookshelves there, and I was going to get a book, and there's a little boy standing in there, and I could see the bookshelves through this guy, and we just kind of stared at each other for a while until he blinked, and that broke my shock for enough time for me to turn around and go into my bedroom and shut my door.
Oh man, that is fascinating! Wow. Man.
Yeah, and I haven't seen one since, thankfully.
That's funny because I remember I first I listened to your interview on Coast to Coast, and
thank you.
It was a very good interview, and I remember I really liked one thing that you said, because I've always been interested in like paranormal and reading about it, and I liked what you said when you said that you said you love the paranormal but you don't want to experience it.
Yeah, I love it as long as it's happening to somebody else. If it's happening to me, yeah, I don't love it anymore.
Oh, yes, I really liked that comment. So your journey, you're an author, you're a writer and such. What would you say was a major thing that influenced you to get you where you are today as a writer and an author?
Oh, as a writer, realizing I wasn't any good. Mm-hmm. It really helped me because in school, in high school, I was the best writer I knew. When I was in college, in all my writing classes, I considered myself better than everybody else. And having that in my head, I got a couple of articles published in a national magazine when I was in college. And at that point, I'm like, I'm good. I don't have to get better. And then when I graduated and I got a job as a newspaper reporter, I realized I didn't know anything about putting words together the right way. I realized, man, I'm not any good at all. I've got to work hard to make myself better, and that is what got me as an author when I realized that I had a lot of room for improvement, and that I was not the best. I was close to the bottom, and that's what I tell my kids and my students. I teach journalism at a university, is that go into this thinking you stink, because there's only one way to go, and that's up. Takes hard work.
That is excellent advice, because it is true. Tenacity is very important in journalism and in writing.
Well, and in everything, I liken this to when I was a kid. I love baseball. I just love baseball, but I'm really not an athlete. But I wanted to play. I wanted to start on my on the Little League team. So I, through the years that I played Little League baseball, I just busted my butt practicing until I was good enough to start on the team. I still was, on the bottom of the starters. I wasn't that good, but I worked hard enough to where I could, get my goal.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's excellent. Yeah. Well, you mentioned, that you teach journalism. Do your students find, your profession as a paranormal researcher, do they find that really interesting?
Yes, yeah, they do. Students that I don't know will stop by my office just to talk to me about it. I've also used that to encourage students to go into writing more. I've offered a class called Paranormal Journalism. I don't offer it every semester, of course. Just every few years I'll offer it, but it fills up quick.
Oh, I would imagine, because that would be a very interesting topic, I would think.
Yes, well, the basic premise behind it is to get the students, one, more writing work, more writing practice, but two is to get them to think about certain topics a different way. The stories that come out in mainstream media for ghost sightings or Bigfoot or UFO sightings, for UFOs they'll play the X-Files theme. A story on a ghost sighting, they'll reference Ghostbusters. They'll reference Harry and the Hendersons when it comes to a Bigfoot encounter, and that automatically makes light of the situation. And even if the rest of their story is good, solid, straight work, they've already made fun of it, which just belittles it. So it's basically using a fun topic to get my students to look seriously at all topics.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense, because it is true. A lot of the media and reporting kind of doesn't take a lot of it seriously. That is very true.
Right. And then the people who've had these encounters take them very seriously. So the news should as well.
No, exactly. Yeah, because experiences. No matter how strange, to somebody, it's very real and can be very frightening for somebody.
Well, yeah, obviously, and things have changed since I've been writing. My first book on the paranormal came out in '07, I think, and I had a hard time getting people to talk with me, but because they were worried about being made fun of, and since then. People will open up a lot more, partly because they know I'm not personally going to make fun of them because I treat the story, the subject seriously. But with all of the paranormal shows on, it's really helped people open up about their own encounters.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool because, yeah, a lot of it, like you said, is very, people don't talk about it as much.
Right, which it's good to talk about it. I didn't talk about my ghost sighting for 30 years.
Wow.
And yeah, and finally when I did, I felt better. It's like I guess it's like going to a counselor and telling some of your darkest secrets. It makes you feel better getting them out in the open.
No, it's very true, and kind of once you talk about stuff, it kind of takes the stigma you feel and everything. It kind of goes away.
Right.
Man. Well, kind of going off of what you said of people, not wishing to talk about it as much, and kind of the way the media handles it and such. A lot of people, sometimes, when they think of the paranormal, they think, oh, it's scary, something terrifying, whatever. So in your opinion, what allows researchers and investigators to kind of, go beyond the fear of it and kind of just dig for the truth and view it as like a research project?
Well, when it comes to me, that's just what I do because I was a journalist for 17 years. So all of my research, all of my interviews, how I approach things are like I would approach any news story. And personally, I like that approach more because I go through, I go through it more logically than somebody just out talking about, ooh, what happened that scared you? Because there's a lot more to it than the actual event. What happened in that house before? What happened on, in this area? Have there been a lot of Bigfoot encounters? What about this? Supposed UFO landing. What kind of trace evidence was there? So investigating it like that for me is a lot more fulfilling than just getting I saw this and it scared the hell out of me.
No, that makes a lot of sense. And going at it from the method of your career. Yeah. Right.
I don't know any other way to go about it. Because That's one of the things that I try to be as honest with my reader as I possibly can, and that to me is the best way for me to do it.
Man, that's awesome. I agree 100% with that. And so, going on to a little bit with your newest book, Chasing American Monsters, what influenced you to compile and write that?
Well, I had written a news column, a paranormal news column called From the Shadows. I wrote it for 4.5 years, and I noticed that a whole lot of creepy crawlies were in my general area. And so I just casually started lumping monsters together that I'd come across a news story here, and a piece of historical evidence here. Somebody contacted me with their personal story here. And I started putting them together and realizing that there are a lot of, not just famous monsters from some states, but there are, ones that people have never heard of. And although I like regional books, if I want to find out, things in my home state, if I haven't written it, I'll pick one up and read it. But I thought, to have a book that will touch everybody in the country in one way or another, I think that would be a nice compendium to put together. So that's where I got the idea for that.
Ah, excellent. Yeah. So, and this may be an incorrect statement, but in your opinion, why do you think it feels like kind of like America seemingly has more monster sightings and more like variety of monster sightings than a lot of other nations around the world? And in your opinion, why is that? Do you think it's geographical or just the size of the country, or what do you think?
I think that just more stories have been written. And maybe it hasn't been that more stories have been written, but we haven't read Chasing China's Monsters. That could be out there. It could be written about all the monsters in China. I think that monster stories are prevalent everywhere, and I don't think America's got more monsters than other places. I'm working on Chasing Canada's Monsters right now.
Oh, very cool.
Right, and there are, Mexico might be next because they've got a long tradition of really scary, creepy creatures down there. It's just that, the American ones are the ones that we're exposed to with American media.
Excellent. So, of all the areas of the paranormal that you've researched and studied, what subject do you find most compelling? So, monsters, UFOs, ghost stories, supernatural.
Time travel.
Interesting.
I've always been fascinated by, not just time, but like dimensional shifts, because I've talked with people who've had really weird things happen to them, and they could have stepped back in time, or somebody they encountered could have stepped into our time from a different time, or maybe slipped over from a different dimension. I wrote a book of 09, I believe. Yeah, it's 09, on shadow people, and that was, of all the conclusions I came to a bunch of conclusions about what they could be, but one of them was, maybe we, they appear in places where the window is thin between our dimension and this other one, and all we can see of those people is their shadows.
Very interesting.
Yeah, these absolutely, time travel in different dimensions absolutely fascinates me, and especially because science says that both of these things exist, or they can exist. The time travel and extra dimensions.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, I saw your book on the shadow people, and that one looked very fascinating. And I want to order that one as well as your Chasing American Monsters.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, that one was the shadow people one. Is I had a number of people comment that I loved this book, but I couldn't finish it because it scared me too much.
Because it is definitely a creepy topic, But like you said, a lot of people have. I've heard a lot of stories of people seeing things like that. My mom had a incident where she saw something like that, and it was very odd to say the least.
Right, and there are. a lot of times, I mean, because I saw a shadow person in when I was a kid, and I didn't talk to anybody else about this. Well, except for my parents when I screamed that there was a man in my room. But I didn't talk to anybody about it until the 90s when Art Bell started talking about shadow people on his radio program, and then I realized, wow, it wasn't just me. Other people have seen this too, and I really wanted to get to the bottom of what these things could be, and that's why I started on that book.
Very interesting. Wow. And so you've been a lot of things. You're an educator. You've been a journalist, paranormal researcher, an author. Even a mayor. And of all these different portions of your career that you've done. Do you find that all of these elements complement each other?
Everything works together. Everything that you do in life is going to set you up for the next thing, and I will. I look back at everything that I've done and accomplished, and it all helps me, be a better writer, and helps me with storytelling, which is what I've always wanted to do. Just tell people stories.
Mm-hmm. Oh, excellent. So I have a couple of fun questions here for you.
All right.
So, you mentioned on your site, that you like conspiracy theories and you like to read about them. So, of all the ones that you have read about, what is your favorite conspiracy theory?
Oh my gosh, my favorite. I think my favorite, and by favorite, I'm going to say the most fun. I don't know if fun's a word I should use because there's an assassination involved with it, but it's my favorite. It's the one that I don't think is true whatsoever. There's not 1% chance that this is actually right. But there's a guy who, and he's got a website. I don't remember what the name of it is, but you could Google and find it. That this guy is solidly convinced that in 1980, Mark David Chapman did not pull the trigger and assassinate John Lennon.
Really?
It was not him. Yeah, it was not Chapman standing in front of the Dakota and waiting for Lennon to come out. This guy is convinced that it was author Stephen King.
Oh wow, that is a very interesting conspiracy theory.
Yeah, and again, when it comes to is this true or not, that one is not. But it's still just by it's so far out there. It cracks me up.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to look that one up because I hadn't heard that one, and that sounds like you said, assassinations aren't fun, but it sounds like an interesting one to read, so to speak.
Right. It is.
Oh man, so you also mentioned that you're a Star Trek fan. So of all the movies and the TV shows, is there a particular one that you like to go back to, or that you find was the best made, or your favorite to watch?
Oh, I'll just, the best made was probably the last few seasons of The Next Generation, but the one that I always go back to is the first one I fell in love with, which was the original series. There was just, I mean, the cast worked, played off each other so well. I thought the storylines were intriguing, the view of the future to where, hey, doesn't matter what sex, color, nationality, anything you are, we all get along. Doesn't matter if you got pointed ears or not. We're all friends. That view of the future was, especially at that time when it came out, was it was unheard of. But that's my favorite Star Trek.
Excellent. No, yeah, because that is very true. Because I remember I wrote an article about how he had, at the height of the Cold War, he had a Russian character on the bridge of the Enterprise, and that was just considered so controversial at the time.
Yeah, absolutely, it was. Yeah, absolutely, and I think one of my favorite stories about the original Star Trek was Nichelle Nichols, who played Lieutenant Uhura. So we have a female African American in a command position on the bridge, and she didn't feel like she was getting, enough of the story. She didn't feel like it, and she just didn't feel satisfied with the work. So she was thinking about quitting, and she had mentioned that. I guess I don't remember what the situation was, but she was talking with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. about this, and he's like, "No, you can't. You cannot quit that role. You know how many young women are looking up to you. You've got to stay on." So she stayed on the show.
Wow, that's really fascinating. I hadn't heard about that story. That's very inspiring.
Oh yeah, absolutely. When Dr. King suggests you do something, you know what? I'm going to feel compelled to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man. So I have to ask you then. So have you seen any of the new show Star Trek Discovery?
Yeah, I'm too cheap to have to have Netflix and CBS All Access, so I had to wait. Had to wait till it came out on DVD, and I saw season 1, and I was impressed. There are a few issues I had with it, but overall, with the cast, especially the lead actress, I can't remember her name, who plays Burnham. She's absolutely terrific.
She is excellent.
Yeah, she is. I've really enjoyed it, and I know season 2 is going on right now, and I haven't seen any of it yet, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, yeah, once you get a chance to see season 2, like if you enjoyed season 1, it's even better than the first season, and it has a lot more connectivity with the original series. So I've been enjoying it very much.
Yeah, and that's what I've heard. Friends of mine who started watching season 2 have said if you enjoyed season 1, which I loved it, they said it just keeps getting better. So I'm looking forward to that.
Very much. So what would you what kind of advice would you give to somebody who's listening to this, or reading the article, who wants to be a paranormal researcher or investigator? What advice would you give them?
To look at things scientifically first. It really, really frustrates me when people are like, yeah, we've got this paranormal investigating team, and I'm like, yeah, but you're a mail carrier and you're a plumber, and you're a teacher. You teach kindergarten. What do you know about the paranormal? And I'm not belittling these guys at all. It's just that they'll go out on the weekends and do these, take out their EMF meters and their Frank's box or their audio recorders and their cameras and heat sensing, and we'll try and gather all this evidence, and I'm doing evidence in air quotes, which I'm sure you can see from all the way in California.
Yeah.
But because I've seen some really compelling things. I've heard some really compelling EMF, not EMF, but EVPs. I've heard some really convincing EVPs that I've been in the room when they were recorded. But unfortunately, this is only evidence to the people who collect it. If you got to go in with the realization to know that you're not going to make your mark on science, because it takes people with a PhD out in the field, discovering something and then hoping it repeats, because science is all about, the method's all about setting up the experiment and its repeatability. And unless you're doing things scientifically, nobody with any official stance is going to take it seriously. I mean, I hate to be such a downer, but that's what I feel.
Oh, well, no, but it's very good, because like you said, focusing on the science aspect, also that lends credibility, to the the science, so to speak, of investigating.
Right, but and to give some hope for people to discover something unknown, you don't have to have a scientific degree to hit Bigfoot with a truck. Okay, you can discover Bigfoot's alive or was alive before you hit it with your truck, but you can do that.
That's a very, very good way to put it there. Man, well, I really appreciate you chatting with me, and answering questions. This was a lot of fun.
Hey, I really enjoyed talking with you. I appreciate the opportunity.